All the old ladies are just taking numbers to do the stair stepper next to you.
I've had my fair share of old lady approach me on the stair stepper. Yeah.
And we're back.
Hey.
On our podcast. The big one, episode 52.
Did you see that?
No.
I caught that hair that was falling out of the sky.
The sky is falling. Episode 52, 1 year since we started the Hunter podcast.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? We want to thank everybody for listening to this podcast. Come a long way since episode 1. Yeah. Guests, mics, topics.
It's been fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just getting going. It's just kind of the into the next one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing for us, I mean, we kind of started it, much like we say on this thing, it was more of a passion project, and we're kind of stewards of the podcast and, really of deer hunting, land management, everything that surrounds that. One of the cool things for us since we really started pulling in guests was the ability to, ask questions and learn ourselves, whether you're talking about Winky or Sturgis or Eberhard, the thing is like we're trying to understand things that we're curious about in our own hunting and management, but probably more so, and I think you kind of said it, best on like the Eberhard stuff is like why people hunt or manage land or, everything is around deer and deer hunting, obviously, but why do people do it? Because there are so many different reasons for why they do what they do.
Yeah.
We hear that out of a guy last week from Eberhard's side, which is, the person that I challenged finding is like, who really wants to just hunt public land? And I know he does some walk-in only and permission-based stuff, but there's a guy who literally focuses on hunting public land and he loves it. I'm sure Eberhard can hunt and manage private land if he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. Which is kind of weird because it's like, I feel like, not speaking for you, but that's pretty abstractly far from where I'm at in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of it is because of what we talk about, and probably where a lot of this podcast will go is, the management side of it, right? The things after the season ends that we're so excited about, and it could start as simple as, today's December 23rd. So tomorrow's Christmas Eve, Christmas. You're listening to this first week of January, but I found these just an hour ago. We were out shooting content up here on the mountain in Pennsylvania, and we pulled up in the truck to where we were at this doing some shooting range stuff. And I was like, is that an antler? I was like, that's a good antler. And then as soon as I was going to set up the rest of the stuff, there's the other one sticking in the ground. So brand new, maybe last night, maybe 2 nights ago, I don't know. But literally just sitting on top of the ground in the field, probably a 3-year-old 8-point.
Crazy. I've never found a set that early.
Maybe my lone survivor, 3-year-old on the mountain.
I mean, dude, we've seen bucks holding in March, mid to late March. That's what makes shed hunting so tough.
Yeah, maybe the only antlers I get my hands on all year.
Makes those cameras so critical.
Yeah, which frankly, my cameras are up there. I haven't really spent a lot of time on that place this year just because of the way it was hunted. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. So, I guess before we kind of really dive into the meat of the podcast, number one, I want to thank everybody for listening for the first year. Jared and I have really appreciate it. We've had a blast. There's been a ton of comments, whether it's because of our little giveaways we started or you guys are actually getting intrigued with the podcast. I will say last week's winner of the Stealth Cam Fusion is Daniel Stern. So I wrote Daniel I think he was on YouTube, and requested he send his info to us so we can get him out the Stealth Cam Fusion X. And we're going to do another killer call, the old school Primos buck roar and combo kit with the can. So we're going to give another one of these away. Again, just leave us a comment on the YouTube video, like, share, review, whatever works best for you, but we'll get another one of these out. There's not many of these left either. So there's still other killer calls. I personally kept like 3 of them, so I don't
You bought a bunch to give away and you kept 3 of them?
Well, yeah, but I don't want to like ever run out. Like, what if I lose the one that I've been carrying for 10 years now?
Huh. Are they not still making that?
No, it's gone to the second version.
Oh, well, the second one's just as good.
Never is.
That's what I use.
It's like saying Home Alone 2 is better than Home Alone 1. It's not as good.
Oh, speaking of which, I watched the new Matrix last night.
Oh, did you?
Wasn't that good?
Really? It's been a while.
Yeah, I like Keanu, but let's put it this way: there was about an hour left, and March and I went to bed. Paused it. Went to bed. It's like 8:00.
Wow, disappointing.
Yeah, a lot of they were trying to tie in footage from like the
originals,
because they don't have Morpheus back.
Yeah, right.
And so there's just another random like black guy and like new people, and they're just trying to tie it all together, and they're like referencing the old stuff, and it's like it just didn't.
Once again, why the original
didn't kind of work out,
is never succeeded as being better after the first.
Yeah. Don't worry though. If you don't get the first one, or if you don't like win one from us or something, the second one's still pretty good.
Yeah,
that's what I use.
It's a good call. Again, no affiliation. I thought it was cool that I found like a lot of those at Rogers Sporting Goods, and I was like, cool. We'll give them away because they're a good call.
There you go.
So this week on the podcast, no guests, just Jared and I. So everybody probably just tuned out. Not just kidding. But we just kind of wanted to go over, kind of a year in review here of 21. If you guys are listening to this, it is the first full week of January 2022. And if you're in the industry or typically attend the Archer Trade Association show this year in Louisville, Kentucky, we will be there live with the Hunter podcast for January 7th, 8th, 9th. So if you see us, stop by, grab us, talk to us. But we're going to pull in some guys in person. Jeff Sturgis, I know, will be there. Warburton and the Hunting Public. Probably Dan Enfold. A couple other guests that we're going to be pulling in a live format there. So, again, if you're listening to this now, check us out at the ATA show live. But, yeah, I think the thing that we wanted to use today for was really to discuss, kind of just year in review, not necessarily only about the podcast, but hunting season in review. Not that it's over yet, thank God, because I haven't filled a tag. But also thinking about 22 and kind of where we're going, with Hunter as a brand and the podcast and kind of some of our activities here that we've got lined up in 22. And it's crazy. I mean, even just staring at a match set on our desk already is like, that puts a little panic in me.
Yeah, man, I haven't even given it a thought.
I've been seeing some people. I mean, there's definitely some people who've been posting that they're seeing shed bucks or finding a couple of sheds here and there.
Though, just weirdos.
Yeah, well, like some of the Ohio forums and stuff I've been on, like guys finding random ones here and there. Somebody posted a buck that had shed on camera, but like he looked rough.
Yeah,
like to see this there, and I mean, there was a lot of deer. We were in just a big open old like clover field that I had planted 2 years ago. I mean, there was a ton of deer sign in it. I mean, like, just droppings, like, everywhere. Like, I mean, they're hammering it for sure, and thus these two just laying right in the middle of the plot. But, yeah, really interesting.
That's pretty cool. It doesn't happen very often.
Well, that's what I told the guys. I was like, you don't understand. Like, I found a match set. Like, this could be the only match set I find all season. Like,
you ever found a match set?
Yeah, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
Normally, it's like you and I, like, I'll find one, you find one, like one of these deer or over there that we found in Kansas. Like, I found one side, you find one side.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they were 60 yards apart.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. It's rare on a property like that because it's 98%, big timber and
1,000 acres.
Hills and
that they were just there they were, and you hear that a lot when people are looking for sheds is, you find one, you want to make a pretty valiant effort to find the other one, but man, I find a lot of one sides.
Yeah.
And I feel like I put a heck of an effort in. But yeah, it's wild. We were talking about Sean Luchtel, who was on the podcast before. His dad just killed a really nice buck, I think last night or 2 nights ago in Missouri. A guy that I know killed a pretty good buck in West Virginia last night.
So Mark Drury and one of his buddies just killed one off the same farm, which
up in
no
Iowa.
Surprise, but
yeah, like a big 9 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then like here we are looking at, a match set.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, how are we on this teetering brink of like deer dropping already? And I think one thing, so let me pull out the biologist side of this. One thing that I hear a lot is people will say, oh, they're dropping early this year, or like it just like the rut, right? It's very consistent from year to year. What you tend to see from a dropping standpoint is either poor condition of the deer, right? So if that deer is in poor condition, his testosterone level will fall faster, thus he'll drop earlier. The other thing is if he's sick or wounded, right? Same thing, body condition. He's trying to pull back those resources. Testosterone's fallen. He's going to drop earlier. But from a year-to-year standpoint, unless there's some sort of health, issue, or there's been a significant change in the buck to doe ratio, right? That's the other way that we really see it, is like if the buck to doe ratio is getting tighter and those does aren't carrying through to other cycles, or there's not fawns falling into a late cycle, those testosterone levels fall faster. Deer tend to drop earlier in those areas.
Are you saying the same buck will drop relatively the same time from year to year?
As long as those things don't change.
Not like a whole herd of bucks.
I mean, if you think about the herd as a whole, if there is not adult does that need to be bred because they've all been bred in, let's say, November, and there aren't as many or very few doe fawns hitting that critical weight for reproduction, then yeah, the whole herd of bucks' testosterone level is going to fall faster, and bucks are going to drop quicker, basically. Whereas in like certain areas, like Pittsburgh's a great area, right? There's the buck to doe ratio is like completely out of whack in that area. And you'll see and I've got plenty of deer that I've seen in March carrying antlers. Well, it's because, does are getting missed, and in January and February, they're still trying to breed adult does. So that testosterone never falls down enough, essentially, for that abscission line, which is what it's called, to get eaten away and the antler to cast. So, if I have to assume, and again, I don't know from cameras yet, but like this deer was either probably worn to nothing, he's either injured, or there's probably most of the does have been bred up there and there's not many coming through from a fawn cycle. And that doesn't mean that he can't breed a doe once he sheds his antlers, because he absolutely can.
Do they?
Yeah, absolutely can. Still viable for that, but it is that tipping point in the testosterone cycle that starts to decrease, that triggers the shedding process. So he can breed a doe, like, I've seen it before. I've seen bucks grunting full steam, with no antlers in January, but for sure the earliest I've ever found a shed, and for sure a set.
Yeah.
Within the day, probably.
I'm always afraid to go onto the property.
Yeah, we talked about
unless
that.
I know that they've shed, because if you push them off, like, first of all, you're disturbing them, so they're going to get up and shake their head around, and there's pretty good chance that you're going to push them off for a period of time, and they're going to shed somewhere else. And it's not like even if that buck comes back, because if they shed them over there, that's where they're at.
Yep. Well, if you think about it, even last year, like, is it last year we were in Kansas and like we weren't finding any sheds in the spring? Yeah.
Just last year?
Yeah, we were looking for sheds, because I think Colty was with us.
Okay.
So we're out there looking for sheds, and it's like finding oldies here. Like, it's like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden you jump 4 bucks together, still packing in, was that March or April?
March. Late March.
Late March?
26th.
Yeah, it's like, what? Like,
Yeah.
how is that possible? Here we are, December 23rd, dropped.
Super weird.
And it just becomes those areas where, whether it's the deer condition or buck to doe ratio, that tends to be the biggest factor. I mean, I was looking at some of the guys' posts down in Mississippi that I used to go to school with, and like they're getting ready to hunt a rut, and here we are holding sheds, and it's just, that's the, when we talk about this podcast, that's the kind of dynamic that we're looking for, is that there are so many different micro communities within this deer hunting, larger community itself, right? And I know Eberhart, and probably we did too, we routed up the crossbow guys a little bit last week, but that's part of it. Like, I want to hear you guys tell me that we're wrong, and that you don't pull a crossbow out, shoot it 5 times, and then walk in the woods and kill one at 80 yards. That you are as dedicated as the bow hunter, as the recurve hunter, as whatever. Same with the rifle guys. So I think that it's interesting when you start to look at kind of where everybody's at. Like, here, our mind's starting to transition to 22 and off-season management and property acquisition. And guys in Mississippi are like, what are you talking about? Like, peak ruts next week. Alabama hasn't even like got there yet. It's like a week or 2 away. And it's so weird to be thinking about, all these different areas within this community. And yeah, here we are holding sheds and about to teeter and sunset the season out.
Yeah. I'm about over it.
You're about over the season?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm ready for, this is kind of like my reset
Fresh start
period here. If I still had a tag and in a good spot to go, hunt for the late season, I would do it. Absolutely. And there's, a month or so that you can do that depending on, obviously if they hang on to them, but I'm ready to start busting the chainsaw out and walking for some sheds and kind of putting a plan together for next year, especially at like my home place in Ohio. It seems like I'm just like, relative year over year. And it seems like, dude, I haven't got a picture of a shooter buck on my farm probably since November 1st.
That's wild, man.
I know.
1,000 acres.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I know.
You have the food too.
Yeah, we've got food, and I've got some 2-year-olds and does.
Lots of does.
Basically, is what's there. It seems like them small late season food sources don't do it. Like, it's good to catch some end of November, early December, like rut movement. But I don't think that's enough to hold like a mature buck in some cases. It seems like the size of that food source matters. Like they want a big destination food source for late in the season, and they'll travel to it. But even though I've got altogether maybe 4 acres of Nebraskas and little half-acre deals,
they're just not hitting.
None of them are holding a mature buck. Like he's not frequenting it at all. I have to imagine, because I know they're in the area. They're probably holding up in more thermal cover on the neighbor's property, and even if they're like migrating to a several acre bean field.
Well, I think that's an interesting point because we're obviously talking a lot about Northeast Midwest, and here it is. We're a week away from January. Or listen to this, we're in January, but like the next 2.5 probably months are extremely tough on a whitetail. January, February, first 2 weeks of March prior to green up are just brutal on that deer, especially these mature bucks who've come out of a rut where they've beat the hell out of themselves essentially. And so I think if you're a mature buck and you think about it, you probably are going to set up your winter range in an area where there's probably enough food and not as much social pressure for the next 2.5 months, where maybe one of those half-acre plots, though there is food now, they know 4 weeks from now there's going to be 15 does in there and fawns, and it's just going to be like they don't want to be around that stuff. And we keep talking about the isolation of some of these big bucks for sure, and eventually they end up coming in counter with other ones. But I think a good spot, even though he's a younger deer, you start to think how some of these deer set up on the place where you killed your buck this year. And that plot is very much in the center or near the center of that property, and it's super thick around it to where they can come in and they can get out of that plot pretty quick. But I think there's probably also some destination food sources around that property that they also have access to.
There has to be, because those bucks aren't in there like every night or even that often.
Which, you think because of that brassica plot, they would be. And this is the mindset that I think a lot of us, like I have to start, even though I'm looking at this and like, well, what's Pennsylvania got left for me? If I'm thinking about Ohio or Kentucky still here in the next 5-6 weeks, it's like, what do I got option-wise? And frankly, you have to start thinking about where are these deer at now, but where do they want to be? In these bigger plots essentially, or these cut cornfields seems to be, or if they're standing crops for sure. And even like our Ohio lease, that frankly again hadn't been seeing shit for months. Like all of a sudden, like, hey, last night there was a really nice 9-point. I don't know that deer, in that big cut cornfield. And so I think that you start to see this little bit of a transition around as these deer kind of position themselves, at least for the next 8 weeks, if not 10. And that could be dramatically different than what we've seen, early season and during the heat of, October, November. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm in the same boat though. Part of me, so this week I had a buddy come out who's got a skid steer and a mulcher come out behind the house, and basically we mapped out an area or two that we're going to try to clear out and expand food plot there. and it's 28 acres behind there, but like there's enough deer that move through there that if there's enough food, I can probably have a better shot, or the kids will have a better shot at killing some of these bucks. Right now, they could walk across that food plot in 3 seconds, and they definitely skirt a lot of that stuff. So like I'm starting my mission for 22 on that property is food, and I am going to do some cuts and cover, but for almost all the properties I hunt, whether it's there, the new place in Ohio, or Kentucky, is food. Right? That is my limiting factor, where I think on your home farm, at least, it's probably more cover. And you're starting this, what's not going to be a quick process, but this long-term process to, restoring pasture basically to some sort of early successional cover, per what Craig had talked to us about, Craig Harper.
That's the plan, tentatively. I don't know. The whitetail woods just feels so small this time of year. Like, in September, it's like optimism is there.
Yes.
And it's like, seems like there's a lot of bucks, and there's just so much foliage and stuff. It's like the woods feels big, and it's like, man, there's just endless opportunities, but as the season goes on, like, and the foliage falls and the bucks kind of move off or get killed, it's like you're kind of left with, it can seem pretty desolate.
Yeah.
This time of year. And unless you have like a really good thermal cover, section, which around us is typically, pine trees.
Yeah.
It can be tough to find a buck at all, and it's not like, I've got 20 different stand locations. It's like, okay, most of them are useless this time of year.
100%.
You have to find that bed food, and it's not just any bed. It's got to be thermal bedding to late season food source. And in my opinion, size matters, when it comes to a late season food source. So if I change anything as far as food, it would be, in catering to the late season, increasing the size of a late season food source, like a real world, bean plot would be probably the move there.
Well, and that's where my struggle is right now, because like obviously everything that we positioned summer cameras, then we kind of shifted them around to pre-rut, and really those pre-rut mainly covered the rut. Like now at this point, like most of these cameras I'm not seeing anything on, right? Because they're pinch points in woods and things like that. So it's like, what do I do? Do I go into these areas and do I try to move cameras around and get one on pattern? Like in Pennsylvania and Kentucky, I literally have 2.5 weeks. Like it's not going to be worth it. You have to try to intuitively think like, all right, throw any observations aside. Like as long as I know that there's a shooter buck in there. And that's the other thing. That's been my struggle of all of 21. And I've heard this from a lot of people, but just like deer hunting, like some people will say, including me, like it was a bad season for me. Like I didn't have a shooter buck besides the 200, which I put my time in for. I don't have a shooter buck to even go after. Like there wasn't one, which is fine. Like that's part of holding your standards to a certain point. Where other people I talk to, this is the greatest season that they've ever had in their life, and it's just like, how can it be like that? Like, even if, especially like if I understand if I hunted one place, like let's say I just hunted Pennsylvania, I could completely understand like, hey, this is a poor season. But we had Kentucky and Ohio and Illinois, and like, it just wasn't good all around. Part of it I think is what we talked about, which is leases versus land ownership. And I think we've quickly realized that there are certain places that leases make sense. There's a lot of places that even if you don't hunt or have as many places to hunt, if you own something and can own something, huge advantage, right? And for the short term and the long term. But I think the other thing is, the time that you can effectively and efficiently hunt places and states, unless you're, Eberhard said it, one of the TV guys, right? Can't do it. It's not possible. For you and I working, most of the people listening to this, like you can go and hunt. You can go do an outfitter hunt for 5 days here. You can do an outfitter hunt for 5 days here. But if you truly want to like have a chance at killing mature bucks, and especially if you're talking about leases and or permission ground, or even more so public land, which we did a bunch of, it's not possible. Like I really don't think that you can manage life, meaning work, family, etc., and travel to multiple states and be successful, especially at killing mature bucks. Maybe a buck. I'm sure we could have went to any state and killed a buck, or a 2-year-old. We have plenty of chances in Illinois to do that. But to kill a mature buck, there's no way. You don't have enough time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like I said about, the September time frame, it's easy to look at it and be like, oh, I've got, 15 or 20 bucks, all these deer I would shoot. And I've got all these different setups and so much time to get it done. It's, it's a 3-4 month season, in Ohio. But the reality is that, a lot of them deer are going to move off. Only certain stands are going to be good at certain times of the year. And you're only going to catch so many, weather patterns, which in my opinion is the biggest factor of daylight movement.
Huge.
Assuming you have the right, habitat on your property that you're hunting to begin with. And so, like, it matters, man. There's only a few select opportunities, and if you're like, okay, Red Moon says second week I should be in, Kansas. Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean the weather. I mean, here's the perfect case in point this year. Literally, November 1st to the 6th? Amazing. Right time of year, right weather.
And it's not always that way.
Correct.
Yeah, I've had that week be terrible.
The 2 weeks prior to that, trash. The 2 weeks after that, of which you were in Illinois, then you weren't, then you were in Illinois with me, garbage.
Yep.
Like, literally, we had November 1st to the 6th, and if you start to look at all these people killing deer, including yourself, and when I had chances at that 200, it was during the 1st to the 6th. We talked with Steve Shirk about it, 1st to the 6th. And so, like, when you think about, okay, I've got Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Illinois, whatever to hunt. Now I've got really 5-6 days that was prime hunting. You can't hunt everywhere.
Yeah.
Can't be everywhere.
Well, and they rarely come in more than 3 day long stretches.
Yep.
Because it's gonna be a rain front, and this is probably the most true in October, but I think it's pretty relevant for November as well for daylight movement. Anyways, is it's gonna be a precipitation front where it warms up a bit, the pressure decreases, and then shortly after that, like within a 12-hour window, the pressure's going to rise, the temperature's going to drop, and you're going to have 3-4 good, really good hunts there that to make it happen. So to look at a full week's worth of hunting, you hope that it overlaps that in some capacity, but you rarely get a full week's worth of good weather hunts.
Yeah.
And so it just, I think it just comes down to like flexibility. And I know it's like, it's hard to drop the hat and drive to Kansas because cold front's coming.
Yep.
But that's
what it's going to take.
That's kind of what it takes
to
to be the most effective with your time. It's just so hard to get all of the homework and the preparation to align, and then to have the flexibility to watch for those weather fronts, or just to watch for specific bucks movement patterns on from a camera from a distance, to be able to make the move. But I think that's, if you can set that up on 2 or 3 different places where big bucks are, that seems like the way to be the most effective with your time and to actually put some of these deer on the ground.
I mean, I think that's what it comes
coming
down
from a
to.
guy I don't think I've never killed more than 1 buck in a season. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I've become close.
Yeah, and I've
shot at more than 1 buck in a season.
I've had several 2 buck seasons for sure, but I mean, it is the perfect alignment. That buck that right there over your shoulder, I killed. We went to Kansas, and like first morning in Kansas, I stuck a 180.
Yeah,
but it was because like the way that I killed that deer was the end of October, big cold front. He was coming to a scrape right in the evening. Fast forward 4 weeks basically, and now we're peak rut of Kansas chasing. So it's when I want to say this because like, and given that we've got plenty of friends and acquaintances and stuff in the industry, but like as I see and read more of the comments, which I really like now, I think you do too, even though you say you don't like to read the comments.
I don't read them.
Yeah, you do. I saw you comment on some. They, I think I want people to understand, like, it's okay to go and hunt somewhere and not be successful. And I think that far too often some of the content that's put out is like, oh, so-and-so went to Illinois and then they shot this buck, and next thing you know, they're in Missouri and killed this buck. And like, it can happen.
It's an interesting subject.
It can happen, but it's not.
But nobody wants to watch that.
Nobody wants to watch it, frankly, and it's a weird thing because I joke with people in some of the comments, like, Eberhard saying, well, like, I wouldn't move to Iowa to kill 180. It's like, oh, my bags are already packed. Like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
But to that point, I wouldn't want to hop outfitters and just kill bucks. And that goes back to this whole why like we hunt public land, but I would never give up.
I mean, there's nuance even in that. Like, I'm not going to say I would never go and hunt with an outfitter, but you know, that's such a situational thing. Like, you know, outfit and like the term outfitter is just like, you know, somebody who you know, pay to go like have access to their land. And
yeah, Steve Shirk's an outfitter. I would hunt with Steve Shirk.
Yeah, it could be there's such a diversity, and like, you know, they're literally taking you to the stand that they pre-hung, and they're doing this versus like, you know, hey, you pay me and you hunt this farm. It's essentially a lease. And so like, I don't like judging guys that hunt with outfitters either.
But you see what I'm talking about, the guys who literally are rolling in, know nothing about there. They're putting a stand, they shoot the deer. 2 days later, they're rolling out of camp and into the next camp.
Yeah. Oh, I know the guys.
It's an entertainer-based side.
Yep.
And I say that because like a lot of times I think the people who like land management and who really dig into land ownership get looped into that upper 1% group like that, and we're not. We're completely different, right? The fact that I like land ownership and management is because starting today, I'm picking up sheds and thinking, what's this deer going to look like next year, right? What food plot should I be planting? Where is he bedding? You know, should I put some cameras in to see if I can get him and make sure his body condition's good? This off-season side is what I think you and I live for, right? Which is what makes the season so exciting.
Well, yeah, and like to what you were just saying a second ago is like, if you don't kill a deer, like you don't have a TV show, basically, because nobody wants to watch. You know, you sit in a tree stand for 12, and that's just the reality. Like that, that's not inherently wrong. You know, I don't like to watch hunts that you know. Not that I haven't, but it's like, and so that puts a lot of pressure on people trying to produce, you know, hunting TV shows to kill something.
Yes,
and so I can understand the pressure to, you know, to go and hunt with an outfitter or to whatever it is that's going to like stack the odds in your favor. It's just unfortunate because, you know, we've seen guys get burned out by that. Yeah, I can name a few right now I know that are just... Well,
Bill Winke will tell you he got burned out by it. Told us on his podcast.
Yeah.
That it just, you know, eventually he just kind of wanted to hunt and not have to worry about that stuff. He did it this year.
Yeah, and there's guys worse than that I think were like, I just kills on film. Got to get kills on film. And it's like, man, bummer. You know, because I know that guy really liked to hunt, you know, back in the day.
At one point.
Yeah, at one point. And then it just became a... How many animals can you kill on film and turn into a TV show? And that sucks. You know, that's why you and I kind of decided, you know, midway through this thing, it's like it would be cool to film these things and to, you know, capture our experience and stuff. But like, dude, I want nothing to do with that pressure, you know, and what that would take away from,
and it does,
like, our passion of.
It's not
of
to
hunting.
say like I love watching back on some of the hunts that I even self-filmed and things like that, you know. But
obviously, nothing wrong with filming.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure there's a bunch of people that are listening to this that film their own hunts, but like, there's a simplicity to not filming the hunt. As part of this podcast, especially when we discuss, that is really the pure climax moment of everything that we do across the whole year. And I think when you end up trying to film and document, and even this year, like, I mean, dude, we bounced a lot of states trying to capture film, and eventually it was like, dude, we can't do this. We don't hunt enough. We don't hunt enough places.
Well, the thing is, that's not real. Like, people don't get to go out and kill $8 or $12 a year, you know, and that's, you have to have like a successful, you know, show of some sort. Like, you know, even the hunting public, I mean, those guys freaking hunt every day. Like,
yes.
Like, and
it's a lot.
The pressure's on them to, you know, they don't have to put down the same kind of deer. I mean, the pressure was doing, but
for sure on them. I mean, because I know this year especially, I want to say it was like early to mid-October, and they had not posted like a deer tour kill. And I know people were talking about it, and it's like, well, guys, like, that's normal. Like, here I am sitting on December 23rd. I haven't punched a tag, you know, and it's like, what, like, but because they're that entertainer, that show, they feel the pressure because, frankly, the public, us, puts it on them to be like, guys, like, what's going on? Like, it's October 15th. You haven't killed anything. Like,
well, yeah, because we're all sitting here, you know, with tags in our pockets, you know, looking for inspiration to say, oh, how cool. You know, that's what we're trying to do, you know, to keep us fired up and stuff. And that's good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting to
it's not something for, like, I think a lot of people listen to this probably envy guys like that and like, man, I wish I could do like what the hunting public does. I don't. and it's because I've been in that position before, and I know those guys and how hard they work. It is not an easy position to be in.
Well, dude, I've said it to you before off the podcast. I might as well just say it now. There's nobody that I feel worse for in this industry probably than like Aaron Warburton.
Yeah.
And anybody, Greg or Zach, those guys that are in the hunting public, and there probably are other shows doing like a similar thing. They set out to do a good thing. They wanted to, like Eberhard said last week, make hunting public cool again. And they did
success.
Absolutely. Yeah. They accrued a large following and have had a lot of success, hunting public land, but that's hard. Hunting public land is really hard. And it's admirable to go out and do something hard and accomplish something significant on it, like to kill a big buck or, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But at some point it's like, man, how long, and this might be weird coming from like a 28-year-old kid, but like, how long do you want to suffer through like the hardest way you could possibly try to kill a deer?
Mm-hmm.
Like at some point, wouldn't you want to find a more enjoyable way to do it?
Well, I think that was the challenge, and maybe people took it out of context when we were talking with probably Eric and Cody, because I said something like who would like choose to hunt public land?
Yep.
And the reason I say that is, and coming from a guy who hunted public land purely for a long time and was successful, like the enjoyment that I've found, especially owning land, but even when I leased it, around year-round management and planning and control, there's a big part of me that lives for everything around those October, November, December moments, right? And frankly, there's some of it I enjoy more than the struggles of a mid-October or a late season, just because like I'm building towards it, right? I'm putting effort in. The fact finding these sheds today is just a cool step of that. And so when you start to think about the guys who've kind of pigeonholed themselves in the public side, like, Aaron, Greg, and Zach especially, like, man, at some point, like, I get it, but that's exhausting,
And we're fans, by the way. Like, we love those guys.
They're good friends of ours.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with what they're doing. I just simply, at this point, I just feel bad that, like, they can't now go and, just hunt private. Like,
well, and I think that, and I don't know how many people know this, I've known those guys for over a decade. And so prior to hunting public,
we're going to talk to him in 2 weeks.
Yep, at ATA, was Midwest Whitetail, right? And Greg had hunted Bill's property a little bit.
I have something to bring up with you after this.
Okay. Greg had hunted Bill's property a little bit, killed some bucks, but Aaron and the other guys, they hunted a lot of public, right? But when they did that, they didn't just go and kill a 2-year-old. Like they were after giant, mature public land deer in Iowa.
Yeah.
And I think that was a cool transition. It was very like, man, it's like these guys can go public and kill 160-inch 5-year-old. I mean, go back and watch some of...
yeah, they did it.
Yeah, I was going to say, go watch some of Warb's stuff where he's back there killing it.
The decoy buck, the swamp buck.
Now, all of a sudden, you've put yourself in a position where you're traveling across the country on public, and the pressure to kill is greater than the pressure to kill a mature deer. And so that's where I think, to your point of like feeling bad for them, like I know those guys love the challenge of going out and trying to kill a big buck on public land in Iowa. And they put a lot of time and investment in it. Now all of a sudden these guys have to hunt 15 different states, to the point that we covered earlier. It's not possible to kill mature bucks in all of those states.
Yeah.
You can't do it. But the pressure to kill is on, so what do you end up doing? Shooting 2-year-olds, which is fine. If that's what you really want, I just have to kind of question, like, is that what those guys really want? Is there a reason that Greg hasn't really killed that many deer over the last 4 years on hunting public, because he tends to hold out for a mature buck? And so, I do. Like, I know those guys really well. They'll be with us at ATA. But, I have to ask that question, and I probably will when they're there. And it's like, guys, like, I know this is fun. Like, I love that deer camp atmosphere that they're having. But at some point, like, is there something more that you want out of this thing?
Well, and those guys have said from the beginning openly that, like, their business model is different from, most of the hunting shows prior to them, including, I say, Midwest Whitetail, in that their focus is not on... their partners.
Yeah, sponsorships and commercialization.
Essentially. And that the viewer is first. They will do anything, bend over backwards, essentially, to cater to the viewer.
which they've been successful with.
And man, while that's admirable, like that's just like a mouth that can never be satisfied.
No, I mean, this conversation right here, there will be diehard THP fans who probably say, like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know those guys. They love doing this. And I'm not arguing that they don't have fun doing some of that. But all of them would tell you that given the chance to kind of slow down and refocus and try to kill a big buck and still do what they do every year, I guarantee they would take it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they're all at different places. You know, I know Warp's got like recently got married, and he's got 2 kids from that marriage.
Yep.
That, you know, his that may not be his goal. You know, he might just want to spend time with those guys and introduce them to hunting and stuff. But I don't know.
To be honest, as a dad myself, is extremely difficult to get them involved on public land, because that is a hard place to engage them into hunting that keeps their interest.
Well, I mean, dude, look at.
So now what do you do? Do you hunt public or private?
Public, man. We took Corey, who was on a couple of the first podcasts with us, and he has killed 2. You know,
got a good buck last year.
Nice bucks at my farm in Ohio. I've guided him on 2, and we took him out to Illinois public land. Initially, we were trying to put him for Kansas. We didn't draw, so we all went to Illinois. I took Corey with us, and I threw him in on some public land that looked really good, and by all indications, he was going to be by himself there. It was pretty off the grid. There's like 6 trucks, for first day, and he's running into people and I felt terrible.
Yeah, I mean, because that's basically getting cussed out the first morning.
That's his first experience, and I'm just like, yeah, I just got a bad taste about public from that whole trip.
It's not easy. It's not for everyone. There are certain times that, I won't say that I thoroughly enjoy it, but I like it. Like it's a cool challenge.
Yeah. I am with, Eberhard was like, what am I going to do? Move my whole family to hunt deer? Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. Maybe not. But like I'm still like, at least now I've got enough energy that like I want to pursue opportunity because I've hunted Pennsylvania, and I've hunted public land, and I've hunted some really good, private and public stuff in Kansas. And like, guess which one I'm choosing every time, even though it's 17 hours away.
Yeah.
It's just more fun.
Yeah.
And maybe it is, to use John's words, it's easier than to kill a buck in, but I don't do things just because they are hard. Like I enjoy the challenge, but
you like the success.
Yeah. I like to be successful at it as well.
Well, I think what's interesting around kind of what John said, and obviously like, first of all, like what a super wealth of knowledge.
By the way, did you see the documents that he sent us from the ScentLock thing?
No, I haven't.
It's like a book.
Well, that's what somebody asked on the thing. They're like, yeah, I've tried John's scent control thing. Like, I just can't get it.
No, it's like 45 or 50 pages.
This is why everybody's like, yeah, there's no way you can, beat the wind. I'm like, I don't know, do his 50-page document and maybe you can. Can I? Probably not.
You know what I think?
Yeah.
I don't think he's beating him.
You don't think he is?
No.
Just luck?
Just misperception. Yeah. I like John a lot. And I'm if he thinks it works for him, I don't think it does.
It's interesting though, man, because
I just don't think you can beat a whitetail's nose.
Oh, I agree. I mean, from the day one of hunting, that's the number one thing I've been told. It's the number one thing that the guys who are killing 200-inch bucks are telling me is that you can't do it. And the hard part of fathoming that is like he's telling me from a high pressured 3 to 4 year old buck range that he's beating them, which is really odd because like those deer should be the toughest to kill, right?
I've been wrong about lots of things. I could be dead wrong. I just
the fact that I'm never going to probably disprove his 45-page thesis on scent control, I don't know. Good, more power to him.
Yeah. That's it's kind of what it seems like. It seems like the Build Back Better plan, where it's like it's a great plan. Like, have you read this?
Yeah.
It's like
is there cliff notes?
Good luck disproving it.
Yeah.
Before I forget about it, I wanted to circle back to that little shit that from Midwest Whitetail.
Here's how I was going to transition into that. So we talk about the pressure, right?
Yeah.
Classic case, right? Here we are in an industry where people are working really hard. Obviously, Mike and Jared Mills are super close with us, and have invested in Midwest Whitetail and are now like trying to build this brand and continue this momentum without Bill Winke, which is a big piece of it. As part of that, they continue the intern program, which is where Aaron and all these guys came from. And yeah, I mean, what the hell? Like if
A lot of people don't know about.
If you guys haven't seen this yet, I want to say if by the time this is out 2 weeks ago or so, go back. It's like, I forget what it's called. Like Jared's like 194 or something on Midwest Whitetail. It's the video from Jared. And he will briefly discuss or just kind of graze over the fact that some people that used to work for Midwest Whitetail essentially set up on one of his target bucks on a neighboring farm and killed it, and it ended up being, I don't know, 200 and some inch deer, and that's kind of Jared's like, hey, let me be clean about this story, of which I saw the link and the kid who killed the deer.
Yeah. Filmed it. He used it to start his own YouTube channel. That was the move.
Yeah, congrats on your 200 subscribers, bro. But ultimately, what it was is these two kids were interns with Midwest Whitetail with Jared.
Was there two of them? I saw one in the video.
There's two. And basically had circumvented Jared and got permission on farms adjacent to where this buck was, left Midwest Whitetail.
Which I will say, everything he did was totally legal.
Oh, super legal.
As far as we know.
Morally, no. Like, this is a dick move.
Yeah.
Leaves the internship program, hunts the deer on the bordering property, kills the deer to start his own
It's a giant
YouTube channel.
Monster.
Congrats. Which leads me to my point. Nobody gives a shit if you kill big bucks. They don't care anymore.
Yeah.
They don't. The fact is like, is it cool? Is it envious to see people killing big bucks? For sure. Especially those who do it consistently. Don Higgins, Adam Hayes, Jared Mills. Those guys consistently are killing big bucks, and they're Ben Rising. They're doing shit right.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody cares that you went out and killed a 200-inch deer and you're going to be the next YouTube superstar.
Yeah.
And this industry, I think for a while there has fueled that. And I think finally they're starting to pull back and realize, like, we made some mistakes there.
Yeah.
We encouraged people to think that they could go out as a nobody and start a channel because they killed a big buck and everybody's going to be envious of it. And yes, there's some of those videos that get thousands of views and they're cool. That doesn't make you anybody. Doesn't make you an authority in anything. Doesn't make you want to be a role model. For sure, in that case, not a role model. Like, first of all, you dick off two guys like Jared and Mike who are amazing guys in this industry, and you think you're going to walk into it and succeed. No, bro, we're going to squash you because you can't treat people like that and expect that people are going to actually say, yeah, man, like you must be a great hunter.
Yeah. And it sucks for those guys because, like, dude, I know how hard it is to kill big bucks. And to do it on camera is even harder.
Yes.
And so it's a tough spot for now. You've got these guys who have become really good at it, killing giant bucks. I feel like the industry's kind of, like you said, at least our conversation is like we're kind of turning a corner on, like, not at all that we don't want to kill big bucks anymore. That's still the mission.
Sure.
But I think if we can get away from just making that seem as prevalent as like it has in the past, where it's like your newsfeed is full of giant bucks, it's just like that's just not the reality. Especially here in the Northeast, it's like you have to, and you have options. Like you can go the John Eber route, and you can just try to kill the best buck in your area, or you can travel. You have options. But to think that like you and I are gonna, because we tried. To think you and I are going to go out and kill 5 or 6, booners or camera-worthy deer every year, it's not realistic to balance with any kind of a lifestyle. You know?
And I think that what I really emphasize, number two, is just before anybody like criticizes me for like attacking these, they're not kids. I'm sure they're in their 20s now. I'm probably not that much younger than you, but they also set up on the River Farm, which is Mike and Jared's farm, on adjacent properties and killed another buck of one of their up-and-comers. So, like, this isn't this isn't like a one-off, like, oh, they just got lucky and killed this. No, they've strategically set up on adjacent properties to the farms that they had scouted as Midwest Whitetail interns.
So did they lie on those videos and just say, like, they didn't 100%. Have any pictures of these deer?
Yeah, 100%.
Because that was confusing to me.
Yeah, you're full of shit. Like, you knew that's why you went and got permission on that farm, is because you saw it as you were part of the Midwest Whitetail team and then left and went over there.
I wonder if they give me permission.
Maybe. But why I say that is because this goes back to and maybe no knock to those guys. It's the industry that's forcing them the direction, But again, there are plenty of people that I think that are younger and have good woodsmanship and are probably interesting in interesting situations and want to document and want to film and want to be maybe not necessarily like the next Michael Waddell or Mark or Terry Drury, but ultimately want to be part of the industry from a content producer side. And I feel like as these things continue to happen, the pressure on them to be, oh man, like I have to kill big bucks. Like if I don't kill big bucks, I'm not going to succeed. All of a sudden, all the content that we have in this industry is Joe Blow going out and killing a 150, and frankly, it's no big deal anymore. And that's not cool because, like, if I kill a mature 150, like, I'm stoked about it. I don't want this industry to basically, in this community of hunters, this all of a sudden be like, oh, cool, did you see Jared killed a 150? Pfft, why didn't he pass it? Mm-hmm. That's where we're heading. Mm-hmm. The pressure of everybody watching it, which is why, you know, I can't imagine the immense pressure on the hunting public, because those guys aren't pressured to kill big bucks necessarily as much as they are just any buck. But all of a sudden, the rest of the industry, you know, is all big bucks. Perfect example. And I mean, again, like the guys a lot, content's awesome. Sequan. Those guys aren't out there killing 2-year-olds.
Those guys, but yeah, they're constantly killing giants.
Giant.
I don't know how that's possible.
Giant buck. And I mean, good for them. And it's freaking awesome content. But also, like, what is the pressure? Like, what happens if all of a sudden across the country, all these suburban areas are like, hey, no more weapons in these areas. Like, we're done with that. Like, the pressure on these guys to find access to kill these deer is got to be stressful. And to get it on film.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I assume they're getting paid for it. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just...
Yeah, oh, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. But, like, you have to... Before people are quick to judge some of the ways that they do stuff or any of these guys do stuff, like, there's some pressure that's being put on from our industry to succeed. You have to do this.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a tough thing to say. But I do think, to your point, we are finally turning the corner to where I think a lot of the industry, a lot of the manufacturers and brands, a lot of the content producers are realizing, like, just good quality content goes way further than, hey, I killed this 190.
Yeah. Yeah, just authenticity. And yeah, it's just not possible for a lot of guys, you know, including us. Like, we... Yeah. As great as it sounds, like, you know, you watch guys like Levi and the Drurys and Sequan. It's like, man, that seems cool, you know. But I think we've, you know, the pressure that comes with that is probably
it's a lot.
Probably like offsetting.
Well, I mean, again, it goes back to the whole, you know, we countered kind of Eberhard there on the, you know, the score side versus the age side, which is, you know, okay, these guys are out there just constantly killing 160s, 170s, 160s, 170s. Like, the pressure, like, all of a sudden, and Rising's the one that it comes to mind a lot. Like, that dude for a while there was Booner. He had a year where he didn't kill many bucks, and one of them was like a 130 or something, and it was like, I know he felt like he let everybody down, you know, and obviously he killed 3 giants this year, but, like, dude, that pressure is not healthy. Especially for what should be something that we all love to do so much, which is hunting. Like, the moment I remember getting, when I got hired at Cabela's, the first thing I remember, like, talking to myself, I was like, first of all, I was like, yeah, this is in the industry. Like, it's cool. Then at some point I was talking to a couple guys who we sponsored in the TV side. And I remember one guy coming to me and he said, I was talking about a show. He's like, man, I was like, you know, it's got to feel great to be like a professional, like a hunter. Like, you do this, you love it. He's like, yeah, I'm actually an entertainer. And he was dead serious. Like, he wasn't a hunter. He was an entertainer. He made a show to entertain people. And it's a fairly well-known person. And then in the same breath, like, I talked to other people who told me, listen, the moment you think that deer hunting is work, you need to walk away. Because if you love it that much and it becomes work, at some point you're going to hate it. And so, like, here's 2 guys very rooted in the industry at that time, very well-known shows. One guy's basically telling me he's not even a hunter. He does it for entertainment. Like, the fact is, I don't think that even registered when he would shoot a moose or a caribou or whatever. He's just like, cool, got another show, you know? And the other guy's telling me how much he loves deer hunting, but he knows that he's very close to where it's work for him. And if that happens, he's got to stop. Because then the thing he loves the most that he's lived his entire life for is now work. Right? How do you enjoy that? And I think that's probably the question to guys like Warburton. guys like Levi or Mark and Terry, like these guys love deer and deer hunting. It's undeniable when you see the passion and why they do it. But at some point, like how close are they to where it's like, well, yeah, it's also work, I'm plugging the shows.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of like, be mindful of like who you're aspiring to be.
Yeah, I mean, dude, we said it, and I don't regret it, and I still am able to manage a position where I love, but first of all, I hunt way less now that I'm in this industry than when I wasn't in this industry. And the other thing is like, you have to be very careful being in this industry to not get so wrapped up where from the outside, it's like, man, this looks amazing. Like I couldn't believe what working in the hunting industry. Then you get in it and you're like, what? Like, I thought this guy was like this. Oh, he's an ass. I thought this company made great products. No, it's junk. They don't even care. The guys running it aren't even hunters. And it's like all of a sudden when you're inside the loop, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And now there's plenty of great brands, in this industry, and there's plenty of great content producers, but there are ones in this place. And I think some of the public is getting smarter about it. I think they're starting to see how that's panning out. But ultimately, it's like you can see, at least I feel like you can watch content and you can be like, that guy doesn't love to deer hunt like I hunt. He just is doing it to check the box and move forward, or even some of our seasoned veterans.
I watched one last night.
Yeah, even our seasoned veterans where you like I remember watching these guys growing up and thinking, man, like they love hunting. And now I watch them and it's like they're not even excited.
Yeah.
It's just like, is this season over yet? And like to me, and I think where you and I are at even right now talking about it, I'm sure a lot of people listening is like, it's been a long season. Like I'm still not ready to let it go, but I'm also so psyched about 22 and like getting my hands dirty and like figuring out how to make it better. This season sucked. How do I make 22 better? Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, I feel like what's in it for these guys? Like they're just going to go to the off season and then they're like, cool. Yeah, August 1st, better get back on the road and just go through it again. Because there's nothing that they're prepping for. There's nothing that they're getting ready for. It's a job. That's not envious.
Yeah.
It's the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a general cloak over the industry. We've talked to some guys who I think, they do love it and they put a lot of work. Bill and the guys at Midwest Whites, I know they have a whole off-season show. They put a ton of work into that. Sean from Heartland Bowhunter, I think those 100%. Guys put a ton of work in on the off-season. It's not like you don't have to like work at it the whole off-season in order for us to respect you or for like you to be a real hunter.
Not at all. Like
it's not a requirement, but yeah, I mean, there's a class of people that I think just get caught up in the industry or the expectation from, their following or whatever that they have to be a certain thing. And like, so, fortunately, I think we've made a conscious decision to avoid that. Mm-hmm. The podcast is like our, our bread and butter, and it doesn't require us to kill, 5 giants every year. Although I think we would both love that, and like yes. our listeners.
I would at least like to kill one deer this year.
Our listeners and stuff would think that was cool, but man, if you understood like how difficult it is to pull that off, and there are some guys like Ben Rising that can do it.
12 days.
It's like, man, they're just so far and few between that you just have to just be yourself and like, dude, this is us. So like we just get on and chat with or without guests, and like it's about our season, whether we're having success or not. And what's been cool as we've progressed through this year is like we've gotten the opportunity to talk to a lot of guys who have like paved their way through the industry, like all across the board, from the hunting public to Midwest Whitetail to guys on the land side like Jeff Sturgis,
Dan Perez,
all these people with perspective on. Most of them at least twice my age, for perspective on like, yes. Where they're at with hunting in this point. And so it's been really cool for us to kind of hear that from those guys and then be able to like evaluate our own perspective of like our hunting careers and be like, okay, I don't want this. I don't want to end up like that. This seems like a more sustainable course, something I can ultimately enjoy. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't always mean all out for giant bucks.
I'll tell you that one guy that I think really resonated of if I had to, well, of course, I'd be envious of him, but if I had to lay it out and say, like, this is where I want to be when I'm his age, is Dan Perez. Like, if you look at Dan and you hear how, number one, how he talks passionate about land ownership, I get that, obviously, Whitetail Properties founder. But ultimately, where Dan is now is like every morning he wakes up as a blessing to be outside, to enjoy nature, to see the sunrise, to see deer, to try to track and find big bucks. But like that's a guy where I'm like, man, like you're the co-founder of Whitetail Properties, like one of the icons. Like, man, you think you'd feel the pressure because you own so much land to like just kill giant bucks all the time. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He just loves being out there and just wants to be in it. And like every day he's thinking something, like if he's going and working on the farm or he's planting food plots or he's checking cameras or he is hunting, like he is a guy who has situated himself to say, I'm not going to let the pressure of the industry and icons ruin my expectation of what I want, which is ultimately, I just want to live deer and deer hunting 365 days a year. That's what he does.
Yeah. And I just think that, and Dan's a great example of this, is just to be able to have the freedom to do what you love is probably like what he represents to us. And a lot of people look at people in the industry, you know, some of these, whatever TV show hunting guys, and it's easy to think like that's that, you know, these guys are doing what they love. They're living in their career, but
they're not free.
So many times. Yeah. It seems like such a trap because a lot of those guys are just miserable because they're caught up with the pressure of having to perform, and
they live on the road for 90 days plus a year.
It's pretty twisted because it's like a lot of them loved hunting to begin with, and now the very thing that they got into the industry because to pursue is like manipulated and used against them, and that's like the very thing that's causing them stress.
I know, and that's where I think it's always kind of the be careful what you wish for type of thing. There's a middle ground there for anybody that kind of has to work the day job and even works outside the day job because they want to own land or do this, or even the guy who wants to just hunt public land. Like there's an ability to enjoy that to its fullest and to be, quote unquote, part of the industry without having to sacrifice your feelings and the real worth at the end of the day for what you want.
Well, and just ask yourself, like, why? Just ask yourself why.
Well, and that's what surprises me,
whether that's,
man.
do I want to get into the industry, or, you should have role models, and you should look at people and be like, do I want to end up like that person? And before you say yes, like you should do some investigation as to like,
what is it?
Are they happy?
Are they happy? Yeah, and I mean, I think, listen, I've been there. I mean, when I came out, I did a bunch of public land series type stuff. I was chasing public land deer in Missouri mainly. And I killed some deer and I was trying to film, and, it came out of that. We've done a lot of that kind of side of like, hey, let's film our hunts. Let's do this, and ultimately the things that I've recognized that I enjoy are, I love the year-round aspect of deer management, which tends to be in ownership, land ownership, or it could be leases or it could be permission ground. And I love to challenge myself to kill normally a particular deer, not just mature deer. I really like to focus on a deer, which was why this year was so hard, is I had like one deer in a place that I didn't have a lot of access to hunt. And other than that, I didn't have shit. I didn't have anything I wanted to hunt. And so like, that's where I want to be. And, if I kill big bucks, that's awesome. If I don't, like, I'm okay with that because that's just part, like right now I'm ready to go for 22. And what can I make it better to ensure that I have a deer to kill next year? I think that's all it comes down to. If you're sitting here saying, well, I want to hunt to kill big bucks only, I don't think that's it, because there's a lot more to killing big bucks than just killing a big buck. Like, how are you going to get there? How are you going to grow the big buck? How are you going to find it? Is it access? Is it public land? Good luck. And I think that's where people kind of just say, well, no, like I agree with you guys. I want to kill mature bucks. Well, cool. How you can't kill that mature buck if he isn't there? So are you going to do things in the off season to grow it? You're going to get access? That's what I think is so interesting about someone. I think it was maybe Adam was the one who was telling us about it, Adam Hayes, where I was like, well, dude, like, how do you grow these 200s? He just goes around until he finds one, and then he really works hard to try to get access to it.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, like here I am thinking like, man, I'll never grow a 200. Neither will he. He'll just find it.
Yeah.
And it's just weird when you kind of put yourself in those positions and like think about it. It's like, oh, that's crazy. Like I thought you just like knew how to grow big bucks.
Yeah, I mean I think that's what's so cool about deer hunting is like it can be whatever you want it to be, and it can be as hard or as easy, depending on your resources and stuff. Like you can decide that like, hey, I want to kill a 200 incher on public land, and it's possible. It's possible, but you're gonna really have to work for it.
It's gonna be a long road.
Before we got there, I was just thinking about, I mean, dude, you and I are so blessed to just be able to know that we love to deer hunt and to have figured out that that's like a passion of ours, regardless of, our goals, within that passion. I kind of pity people that like, it would be like short-sighted to say, don't hunt, but that's like how I see it. But like just people that don't have something like this that they're that passionate about.
Yeah.
I find myself asking like, dude, if you don't like hunt, like, and I realize there's other passions, but it's like, what do you do?
What? Yeah.
I mean, dude, I think about this stuff every day. Like I wake up in the morning, like, like I have to wake myself out of a dream of like where this tree stand was going to be, or like whatever aspect it is that I'm excited about at the moment. And I just can't fathom like what people who aren't passionate about something like this, like fill their brain space with.
Well, and I guess that's where my curiosity is with certain, because I know I was in it for a long time there when I strictly hunted public land, is like that, there's shed season, but really from, I don't know, April, May to July, August, like there's not a lot you can do on public land. Like you can scout, you can turkey hunt, you can walk around but there's just not a lot you can do. There's a lot you can do right after the season. I mean, we see Steve's been posting a ton of stuff on
train.
Just train?
I train. Well, I've created reasons to have stuff to do. Like I was like, shed hunting was like, okay, that's like a couple week deal there. And then what? I'm like, prep work on the farm, but I was like trying to fill, 2 voids here, or 2 birds with 1 stone. And so we started doing Western hunts.
Yes.
I was like, hey, we don't do anything like September 1st. And I was like, that complements with tag season, essentially, like putting in for tags and stuff. That's like January, February, March.
Then know where you're going, then train for it.
And then train. I mean, dude, that takes physical fitness to do a lot of this stuff. And so like, it's because I want to, I feel great because of it, but I want to like make it a lifestyle. And so like, I know that deer season ultimately is coming, and I want to feel good when I'm hanging stands, and we've got this work to do. These mule deer hunts that we do take a lot of physical effort. We're putting 10 miles in a day, up and down 7,000, feet and stuff. And I want to feel great when I'm doing that. And so it's just an excuse for me to like push it like in the gym and, put 100 pounds on my back and ruck up the stairs and I look like a crazy person because it's like, why am I doing that?
You do.
But it's fun, and I just like I'm
attract all the old ladies.
I'm gonna hunt so hard, like I'm just, and I get hype about it, and it's like it's an excuse for me to just be thinking about this stuff all the time.
All the old ladies are just taking numbers to do the stair stepper next to you.
I've had my fair share of old lady approach me on the stair stepper. Yeah.
I think it is interesting though, because like I know right now, like I had was it last week or so, I got out the hunt stand maps, and I'm sitting there like, okay, I'm gonna plant this, I'm gonna do this, and like quickly I find myself, overexcited basically, because I'm like, well, I'm gonna cut this out, and then I'm gonna plant some pines here, and then it's like, no, there's no time for that. Like you gotta really focus. So like again, my thing this year is I'm planting food. That's the goal. I want to plant food. As long as I get all my food in,
you need me over your shoulder when you're doing that stuff, because you're the salesman and I'm the realist.
Because I'm like, well, we're gonna cut all this. We're gonna plant this. We're gonna plant trees here. We could saw this, and you're like, that's like 50 acres.
Yeah, no, pick 2. We'll do 2.
Yeah,
yeah,
just 2.
Yeah,
damn it.
Yeah, stuff takes time, man.
It does, man. But what happens is I end up getting too just like the hunts, right? I get too much going on, and you don't do any of it effectively.
Well, and dude, we did that this year. We're kind of Monday morning quarterback in here saying like, "Wow, do what your time allows." But this year, dude, we wasted time and money on leases.
Yes,
we got them from the wrong place. They weren't necessarily as good as we thought they were, but we couldn't figure that out.
We didn't have time we couldn't even check them out.
We didn't have time. We just didn't have the resources, and we ended up stretching ourselves too thin. and I don't want to do that again.
No, that was miserable.
Yeah, I mean, we had some fun hunts throughout it. It was cool, but like,
I mean, we leased. I don't know. I want to say north of 1,500 acres, probably across the country in multiple states, and yet I'm still sitting here with all my tags. If that paints a picture to anyone.
I think it's worth noting, and like, not to mention any names, but like, if you're going to use a leasing service, I think you should be. Well, I think you should be wary of those. I think that
I don't think it's as much the leasing service like screwing you over as much as it is
not.
the ultimate demand for access is screwing everybody over.
Yeah, the market makes it so.
You will get a lease.
There's so many eyes on those things.
You'll get a lease email tonight at 8 p.m. or whatever.
Filled.
If you do not touch it and do not book it, you will lose it. And then if you book it, basically, and you don't do it, you lose $400, which is crazy. But that's the world it is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, everyone, I was showing you two, one was in Muskingum and one was in, I don't know, Belmont County. Yeah. So like right next to us, right? Within an hour last night, pending.
And you're right. Those services are not ill-intentioned. Like, the market is just so hot. Everybody's watching those, and it's inevitable. They're going to have to get picked through. There's eyes on these things before they get listed.
I'm sure there's some decent ones out there, but few and far between.
I really think you should save yourself the money and the time of hunting a place that, might not be that good, and go out and try to make some relationships. And if you end up leasing, like, there's nothing wrong with a leasing relationship. That's a great thing to do. But
well, I think that's a good transition. We've I've mentioned in comments. I don't know if we've talked about it here on the podcast, but part of what we're doing in 2022 is we're going to do kind of a companion podcast called "I Bought a Farm," right? And so tying into this whole leasing process here, one of the things, like I give good examples. Jared and I leased this 300-acre piece in Ohio,
Carroll County.
Yep, from the outside looking in, banging piece. Seemed is right down the road.
Pretty close to my farm,
Yep, right neighborhood. Like, everything made it seem well. Transparently cost almost $9,000 for that year.
Big piece of timber,
right? The deer that we got on camera buck-wise in July were the same frickin' deer that we got on camera when the lease lapsed a few days ago. And
here's the thing that we learned, and like, the landowner's a great guy, has become kind of a personal friend of mine. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, like, we bought and paid for this lease without knowing really anything about it.
We didn't have a choice.
Yeah, glanced at it on the map, and it was like, it's the right place. It's, it looks
good
at face value, like it's going to be really solid. I was aware of the area. I knew some bucks that were around there. What we couldn't know until we had spent that money and went out and hunted there for ran trail cameras, at least, is that guy is out there every single day, managing the crap out of his woods, cutting greenbrier.
Cleanest roads that you'll ever see, but that's also doesn't mean it's good hunting.
And it's just, and I'll say again, because I broke my heart to have to talk to
super guy
and say we're not going to probably lease again, but most people, these people don't realize that they're like, well, I drive my 4-wheeler around and like I see the deer and like they don't seem bothered by it. And I'm not saying this is the case every time, but like, those big mature bucks, they don't like that, and they
won't tolerate
it. They won't tolerate it, especially when you're out there every day.
Yeah, and I mean,
they're looking for remote bedding cover. They want security cover.
We basically had one deer that probably was 5, maybe 2. I mean, one we never saw in daylight; it was always at dark. We had one that was kind of funky looking. He was there, and then the rest were like 3-year-olds. And like, as the season progressed, we just expected, like, something's good. Like, he's gonna show. That one that we're after is gonna show. Season's over.
It's human pressure, man. I've noticed that, and I'm sad to say, but it's like on my home farm there, it's just human pressure.
Same way.
Just, mom and dad driving around on the 4-wheeler, whatever, a couple times a week. It's us there hunting. It's guests that we have out. It's like, it's just human presence on a place. Them deer don't want to be there. Them does will hang out and 2 and 3-year-olds that will hang there until they run out of bedding cover and stuff. And then those big mature bucks will move and find security cover.
Yep.
And whether it's on private or public, that's, you have to push into those areas and you find it. You heard that Ben Rising podcast. It's like, dude, when you're in a buck bedding area and it's a mature dominant buck, like, you know,
right away.
There's no question. Like there's big, laid in
100%.
beds. There's sign. Like these deer don't just like adapt and they're like, I'm not gonna lay sign because the humans are gonna see it.
No.
They
mark their
left.
spot.
They went to a remote security, bedding area that just you haven't found yet. You haven't stumbled into. So
well, and I think the reason we kind of cover that is because
which is why scouting this time of year I think is so important.
And again, like even finding these, like I'm stoked to get out. We pay $9,000 for that lease, which we aren't leasing again. Within 2 years of not doing that lease, right now I've got what would be $18,000. That essentially is a year's worth of mortgage payments for
the same property,
a $300,000-esque property, right?
Maybe not the same property.
Yeah, not that one necessarily. Although that's not because of the hunting capabilities as much as it is timber and stuff there. Yeah. But what I'm saying is you've got the ability. And so what we want to do for this kind of companion podcast as we really get into it is kind of walk you through some of our personal journeys. I mean, many of you guys know that I purchased a farm. I'm going to be closing on it here in the next week or so in Ohio.
I'm ready and willing. Just waiting.
Yeah,
for the right
Jared's
piece.
ready to go. Shit, we may end up going in together at some point here on something. So we're gonna start navigating through that, and it's because what we want to walk you guys through is really number one, making them if you really want to spend money on hunting, making sure that you're spending it in the best place possible. Just like renting, like I'm not a huge fan of renting anything. Why in the hell am I leasing when I should be buying and building an asset? Same property. So we're gonna go into that aspect of it. And then number two for that is as we start to get into these properties, not only talking about what we're doing management wise to like get them there, but even before that, what did we look for? How did we get financing? How are we going to make money on the property? Is there timber? Is there cash rent crop? Like we talked about a lot of this with Dan Perez, but I think we want to get real nitty gritty on this stuff as we move into 22 and kind of bring you guys in on that journey. And I think that open that up for some questions because it seems like there's a lot of you guys who are in the same boat where you're like, I'm leasing or I kind of have some money for a down payment, but shit, like when do I know the right property is to buy, or should I buy now? The market's like so hot. Like I feel like it's almost like not as demanding as the leasing property, but damn close. I mean, I see good properties coming to market. In fact, mine was one where within a day of it being on the market, I called the guy. I was on it in 2 days. I had an offer in on 3 days and accepted. And so there is some urgency, at least right now, because money is cheap from a financial standpoint, that if you find the right place, don't wait on it because it's probably going to go. But what does the right place look like, right? And that's really what we're going to get into with this kind of companion podcast.
Yeah.
So,
well, and a lot of this stuff is it's not like in hindsight, here's a lesson on how to do all this stuff. We're gonna do it, and we're gonna take I think the listeners along for our ride as we kind of get into some of these initial. First of all, finding the property, purchasing the property. You've yet to be on it as the owner. You're closing here in a couple weeks.
I've been on the property one time and I've been twitching since.
And so we got a lot of projects on the horizon, a lot of fun to be had with that, and I'm sure some learning experiences that I think the plan is just to share those as openly as possible.
100%. The successes and the failures.
Yeah, talk through how to avoid some of the failures, obviously, and maybe improve or exceed on some of the successes. But
yeah, and ultimately, I mean, there's two ways to take this thing, and I've got one right now that kind of is a forever property in Kentucky that is like a family property for me, and something that at some point, I may even retire to, versus kind of what I have in Ohio, which is more of an investment to where I'm going to enjoy it and really try to improve it over the next 3 to 5 years. At some point, putting it back on market to make a profit. So, I think that I want to lay that out there because
buyers.
Yeah,
possibly
buyers, possibly you. As you start to put those pieces together, like, don't think about the first property you buying being that long-lasting, lifelong hunting farm of yours. It could be, but it also might not. It also might just be a stepping stone to getting something that's bigger, to finally landing the property that makes the most sense. So, yeah, I'm real stoked about that. I mean, obviously that's where a lot of our passion lies, and I'm sure we'll cross over and talk about it here on the Hunter Podcast. But that companion piece will start coming out here in 22, and really just focusing in on land ownership, the process of it, finding land, what to do with it, what are good things, what are bad things.
And I think we're still figuring it out, but I mean, more than likely, it as far as the format and stuff, but it'll be on the same platforms and stuff. And so anywhere 100%. You would want to keep up with us, this is just going to essentially be like you said, a companion podcast, around your purchasing of the farm. And ultimately, I'm going to buy one too, and we'll intertwine, the stories of all the projects we're working on there. And
I think the exciting thing for us, just like this podcast, to be stewards of the land ownership side, is we're going to pull in guests who can help educate us on those things. So it could be people that are specialized in the financial side, could be stuff in self-directed 401ks, could be stuff in cash rent, could be stuff in timber and forestry.
Yeah.
All of those things that we could talk about here on the hunter side, but we really want to kind of keep this moving in the same direction that we have been going in 21, is the I Bought a Farm podcast will really cover in depth to kind of help you bring along on that side. So if you're listening on YouTube, it'll end up being just like a separate playlist basically on the Hunter channel.
Yeah.
If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or something like that, it's probably going to be a separate podcast on there.
Be fun.
Cool. Trying to think. Last things probably for wrap up for 22. Go ahead.
This is a random place to throw this in, but I do want to let our listeners know that they can watch video on Spotify.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, cool to you figure that one out.
As we're talking about platforms and stuff. So, yeah, we've got all of our video. The video podcast is on Spotify. So it won't work while you're driving and stuff. It has car mode.
Walk.
Yeah, lame. But
no, I'm not driving.
If you're not as on YouTube as much, or you prefer Spotify, we do have the video version on Spotify.
Very cool. See, new things advancing.
We're basically Joe Rogan.
Yeah, so. Pretty much the same thing as the Rogan Experience. Maybe you heard of them.
Yeah.
No, and I think last thing in 22, I'd keep some of the guest suggestions coming. That's something I pay attention to in the comments. I know there's been a lot of call outs for Dan Enfalt,
the world's best father.
Yes. And so Dan will be, after this podcast, Dan will be the next podcast. I'm just trying to get him to be technically sound on it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like next week we'll film Dan, and then obviously we'll be in person with a lot of these guys at ATA, so we'll have a bunch there. But, really would love to hear some of the suggestions. We're obviously going to keep down that path, and we've got kind of a set list that we want to.
It may seem like it sometimes, but we definitely don't know everybody. There's a lot of cool people out there doing some very cool stuff as it relates to like what Jeremy and I are talking about here. So, like you said, would love if people shout out, or put us in contact with some of those people. And it's definitely not reserved for industry folks.
No, and I mean, what I really want to look for are some of the kind of even local icons in the area. I think Steve Shirk's a great one where maybe not everybody's familiar with Steve, but what the guy is doing in the northern tier of Pennsylvania is pretty incredible. And I think there's guys like that. It
really is, dude.
That's insane.
If you're keeping up with Steve's Instagram feed, the amount of bucks that guy finds on public is just insane.
I'm just waiting for him to actually give me coordinates to something when I actually ask for him on his Instagram.
I think we should make it up with him.
We are.
Next year.
It'll be fun, man. That's a good deer camp atmosphere. So
that is one thing for 22 as well. Is I think I'm going to buy a PA.
You heard it here first. Pennsylvania Game Commission. Jared Prussia coming back to the game.
Look out!
Look out!
So we'll bring it back home, and I've been doing some just talking to people,
Yeah, but we talk. I think we are. I mean, I'd hold my PA tag simply to hunt with you up at Steve's place.
Okay.
And I've kind of been leaning on Pops to get in shape here now after all the chemo treatments and stuff. So he's going to be ready to go. He's already talking Kansas 2022.
Well, that's the other thing, 2022. We have Kansas locked
We have Kansas.
We don't know where we're going, so if anybody has anywhere to go.
Your property?
Yeah.
So. But yeah, we have Kansas 2022 tags. And yeah, I mean, I've got a farm as soon as I close on it in Ohio. And yeah, I mean, I think 22 will be exciting. I mean, this off season, I think kind of refocusing. Man, we ran a lot last year. I mean, just going out we shed hunted in Illinois, and Indiana briefly. That's the only time. Like the guy wrote me the other day. He's like, "Hey, you gonna renew this Indiana lease?" I was like, "No, no, thank you."
What? No.
Do I have one?
Yeah.
But I think that as we start to get into this thing, we kind of know our core pieces. There are a few missing puzzle pieces like Kansas, but we know some of our core stuff, and that's where I'm going to spend a lot of time from March to June, just making sure food's in place for the summer parts. And then I got to hit hard in July and August to make sure my food plots are good, because that's, again, I mentioned something to somebody the other day. They're like, man, I feel like all the work and all the effort I put into food plots, and like, I just don't know when it pays off. And I'm like, now, like right now.
Yeah.
You can benefit from them earlier, of course, but like it definitely starts paying full force back, now for your deer, whether that's you killing them or just providing that ample food so they're in better condition going into the wintertime. Now. So we got a lot of our cool partners back for 2022. Still working on a few new deals and stuff, but kind of the originals are back. And that's kind of
I feel like I've learned a lot this year.
I did too,
man.
I
don't want to just come off like I know it all, because I definitely don't.
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned a lot this year, from the guests that we've had on and the conversations that we've had. It's been pretty cool.
I think that some of it, and I know people probably listen to this, pick it up, but there's something cool about, like, there's plenty of us that have heard or thought or wanted to discuss this stuff, and frankly, we're just talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's half the battle in the case, is like, just bring it up. Like, bring up the fact that, I think crossbows in archery season aren't a great thing. Why? Because there's a shitload of people on public land in some of these states, like Southern Illinois, that makes it difficult for other bow hunters to hunt.
There's just so much emotion tied up into hunting. John said it last week too. It's such an egotistical sport.
Yes.
And it really is, and it can take over if you let it. But if we just want to learn, we're not trying to push our agenda on anybody. Frankly, I think we're trying to adjust ours to, like,
we don't even have an agenda.
Yeah, well, like our mindset around hunting, essentially, is what I mean. Based on what we're learning from all these guys who have so much experience, and like, I feel pretty privileged to have had those conversations.
It's just cool to be able to top, like we've talked to a bunch of these guys in the past, but it's cool to bring it out and just get in a discussion. And man, it is funny. Like, next thing you know, you're 2 hours deep in a conversation with Bill Winke talking about burying caskets in the ground so you can sleep in them.
Yeah.
Like, that's just where some of this goes. But like, it is funny, because I think the one thing that is the hardest, and has always been the hardest in this industry, is to a point, everybody's an expert, and whether you want to acknowledge it yourself, or there's the people who don't hesitate to tell you that they are. Nobody's an expert at this stuff.
How many people?
It's impossible.
Has that like turned away? I know that's a lot of people's biggest gripes with, like, bow shops. You go in there and, like you said, everybody's an expert. Well, this is how you do it. And look at this buck. Everybody wants to start forcing their phone on you and stuff. And it's like, man, can't we just let me do my thing? Let me figure it out at my own pace. And like, have questions. Like,
dude, it's terrible. And it is one of the weird things, because everybody's an expert, or so and so killed this buck. Like, man, I'll be the first to say killing big bucks definitely takes skill. Like, you can't just be sloppy about it. You can, but you're not going to kill them consistently. It sure shit takes a hell of a lot of luck. And that doesn't mean just like you're lucky and being in the right spot at the right time, but it takes a lot of luck in terms of the conditions and your availability. Right? Like this year, that first week in November was banging. And if I was fortunate to be able to hunt a lot and get eyes on a 200+ inch deer, you killed a booner. If I had not been in the woods,
you believe that?
I know, I'm on that.
Yeah.
If I had not been in the woods that week, it'd have been a shit season, real shitty season. But and that's what I mean by the luck, is it's, unless you're a pro hunter, or, you're retired and you can hunt every day, and that still isn't the best thing to do. Don't hunt every day.
Mm-hmm.
It is a lot of luck to get done. But I really want people to understand from this podcast that there is more to hunting than just killing a big buck. And it's why even here at the end of the season, and there's a chance I don't kill a deer this year. Harlan killed his first buck, which was awesome. I've got big plans for 2022. I'm going to own a new farm. Like, there's a lot of things to be excited about and be happy about, and be like, this is why I do it.
Yeah.
And I really feel we're getting better at it, but man, I really feel that so many people get down on themselves because they didn't kill a buck this year. And it's like, who cares, man?
Yeah.
Not a big deal. Who cares?
If I can pat us on the back for one thing, I think that we've done a really good job at prioritizing, in our case, it's hunting. That's what we love to do. And anything that comes along with that, it's whether that involves the family or like, I'm not just saying like, hey,
we hunt.
We prioritize hunting over all things. Cause that's not the case, but we know how, like precious that time is, and you only have so many hunting seasons. Frankly, you and I could kill over dead tomorrow. Like we don't know.
Yep.
And so I think we've done a good job over the past like 2 seasons, maybe at least this last season, of like just being okay with be like, hey, I'm gonna miss out on this thing, but like, dude, you need to go hunt, like, because I know that's what you love to do, and
I think it's a big piece.
So we definitely don't hunt every day, but when the time is there, we do everything that we can to
well,
take
I mean,
advantage
you and I
of it.
both talked about it, and some of it's season, some of it's not travel. Neither of us have hunted. I haven't hunted since opening day of Ohio. I haven't personally hunted in a while, but
Yeah, dude.
yeah,
Like 3 weeks.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I've taken the kids hunting and stuff, but I personally haven't hunted in a while. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal. Other thing, though, to kudos on is the prioritization to this podcast, because we kept up with our deal to each other, which was 1 a week.
Yeah.
Of which I don't know if we actually thought we would do 1 a week.
Pretty amazing feat.
Yeah, really cool to be.
You were an hour late
here.
for today, but
I was finding sheds. I was out finding sheds.
but we did it. We got 52 out in a year.
Yeah, and that's a cool thing. And again, we appreciate everybody listening and the support, and really do believe that we have something cool here, but not in a selfish way, but sharing it with you guys. And so, keep the feedback coming, keep the guest suggestions coming.
We're on a journey, man. We're on one that I didn't realize would reveal itself to us, but we're on it.
Yeah, man. And I don't know where it goes. It just keeps going. And, at some point I wrote Sturgis the other day, and I was like, God, man, I've got this new plot, and I don't know if I should put switchgrass right up the middle and divide it, but then you told me I shouldn't plant 2 different plots.
This is one of those classic. He was texting Sturgis, and Sturgis was not responding.
He did respond to me, actually.
Okay.
He did respond to me, because I was telling him about, I was like, distance or density or distance of cover and stuff. I was like, anyways, we did talk. But, like, those are the things.
He talks to me.
We talked every once in a while. Merry Christmas. But, yeah, it's just, those are the things you get into, and you're just like, even still, like, I don't know what's right. Like, I don't know what's right. And that's what this hopefully keeps going, is at some point it's so much trial and error too. Like, I liked my winter rye this year. I also think that I may have made a mistake by not planting brassicas at my house, because the deer numbers fell off real fast after October, where typically they're still hanging a little bit tougher there.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me. Don't know.
Live and learn.
Live and learn. So, yeah, I think that this journey that we've got on this podcast, it's the whole point of that thing. We're not going to change. If anything, we're going to add to it with the I bought a farm side of it.
The good thing, I'm having fun with it. Like, it's not, I don't feel the pressure like we're talking about with some of these TV show guys. Like, if anything, I feel, bad for some of those guys. But I'm having fun with this one. Like, there's no pressure for us to perform. Like, we can just do what we are doing anyways.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that
talking.
the other day. Did you and I don't know if you realized, we were on a video chat for like an hour and a half the other day. And it basically was a podcast. I thought about it like 3/4 of the way through. I was like, it was a podcast.
We should have just recorded this.
We should have saved that one. But
that's funny. Well, I mean, that's probably how this thing even got started for us, is we would just bullshit for an hour and a half about deer hunting. We're like, yeah, we should probably just like record this thing.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's a wrap on 2021. Welcome to 2022. If you're at ATA show this week,
I think it's 3607 is our booth number.
Yep. Stop over. You'll see the Hunter booth set up. Come see us. If not, make sure you like, comment, enter for the call. And we will see you on the next one, which should be Dan Anfolt.
Later.
Take me